Sujay Subramaniam is Senior Manager and Interoperability Strategy Leader at Deloitte. He's going to talk to us about the future of interoperability. With life sciences and healthcare industry on the brink of this large-scale disruption, it's great to have a partner like Deloitte who has developed a compelling point of view on the future of health and how organizations can navigate disruption and transform to be successful and thrive in the future. And so we're looking forward to your thoughts, Sujay, and I'll let you take it away from here, and we'll have some questions for you at the end of your session.
Thank you, Joe, again, and the OneUp Health team for the opportunity to present at the Virtual Health Conference. Before we go into Deloitte's point of view on future of health and how interoperability is so foundational to it, I just wanted to share a little bit about how Deloitte went about developing this point of view. So about 2 years ago, we launched a Shark Tank Innovation Challenge within Deloitte, and we have one of the largest consulting units focused on life sciences and healthcare. And we really asked our practitioners what their vision of this future would look like. So we had about 600 folks, over 100 teams participate, 5 teams were chosen. And then there's just incredible ideas that came out of that effort. And then after the effort, some of the most brilliant strategists in Deloitte sat down, looked at this array of ideas that came across, looked at global healthcare trends, what we are hearing from our clients, and then we kind of went into this future of health. So at Deloitte, we believe that healthcare is at a significant point of disruption. In the next 20 years, we will fundamentally move from a break-fix model to a well-being model. Health, as most of you know, is defined well beyond the medical record. It involves so much more: our physical well-being, financial well-being, emotional, socio-economic, and beyond. But healthcare as it exists today is largely focused on sick care, if I can use that term, and not as much on disease prevention, prediction, and well-being. But we do think, given where we are with technology, what we are seeing as disruption in the marketplace, what we see regulators like CMS do in helping us move the needle on key issues like interoperability, that this future of health will be a reality over the next 10 to 20 years. But before we go into like healthcare itself, I just wanted to touch a little bit on what we are seeing in the marketplace. From work Deloitte has done with different industry bodies and forums like XPRIZE, we know that innovation typically happens in 7-year cycles. But what's very interesting about this point in time is the pace of technology disruption is so acute that while we perceive some of these developments to be linear and foundational, the reality is that the change will be exponential in nature. So if you look at Moore's law, the power of chips, bandwidth, computers doubling every 18 months, the cost of things like DNA sequencing radically dropping, the cost of data storage radically dropping, and the key element, which is the human factor, right? If you think about how you consume content, how you consume data, the Netflix experience, the Amazon experience, for some reason, healthcare has been largely immune to this. But what we are going to notice in the next decade is those changes will invariably start coming to our industry, and consumers will expect the same experience that they get from an Amazon or a Google from the health industry. And as a sector, both plans, providers, life sciences, we have to get ahead of this curve and really try and navigate this disruption to the best of our ability. So when we look at some of the macro drivers that we know our clients are focused on and what consumers are increasingly concerned with, affordability of healthcare is a key issue. The percentage that we are spending on healthcare in terms of our GDP, the shift from sick care to well-being, the rise of interconnected health communities, and ultimately personalized care. These are going to be very key issues as the future of health emerges. we are going to see native data-oriented entrants try and disrupt the incumbents. They will learn healthcare on the fly. We will see acceleration of digital health. And if you look at the amount of venture capital money that's flowing into the digital health ecosystem, it's really quadrupled over the last couple of years. We have to do a couple of things for this future to become a reality, right? Access to data, and not just health data, but different quadrants that I'll touch upon that is done seamlessly. In addition to access, making this data available real time at the point of care and at every point of interaction that matters to the consumer. And we believe as we shift the needle from sick care to well-being, volume comes out of the system. And as we apply exponential technology, radical changes are possible to the way we even think about the cause of human health. And we acknowledge that it'll be difficult to predict the future at 100% accuracy. Deloitte's point of view is directional. This presents a framework for health organizations to think about the future and navigate their immediate and long-term priorities, really evaluate what kind of investments they are making in their digital transformation programs. So you should probably start with, to Denise's point, not looking at this immediate regulation that CMS is encouraging the industry to adopt as a compliance or a IT project. It is very much a catalyst that is going to ignite radical change in the industry. And we really do see it as the starting point for the concept of radical interoperability. So at its core, we believe future of health will be driven by digital transformation, enabled by radically interoperable data and open and secure data platforms. But I want to touch a little bit on what is health. Health is defined holistically as an overall state of well-being that encompasses physical, mental, social, emotional, spiritual, and financial health. And if you look at incumbents in the industry, I'll kind of include myself as an incumbent, what we do across all of these quadrants in terms of the human experience around health is very limited. And we believe this will dramatically change as organizations reinvent themselves and disrupt themselves to position for what we believe will be the future of the health industry. So what does the future look like? As I mentioned, at the heart of this future of health is radically interoperable data that's powered by open and secure data platforms. But let's touch on data a little bit, right? The 4 quadrants to imagine the data as it's relevant to the context of health. Now, individual, we all have our own personal preferences, what our genetic profile looks like, what choices we make in everyday life. And then there is institutional data, what you shop on Amazon, what you search for in Google, what your retail choices are like. And then the whole construct of population and environmental data sets that starts to address socio-economic attributes that we all know matters in the context of health. Radical interoperability with the empowered consumer is what is driving that change. What is really forcing us to go from a well-being model, what is really forcing us from going from a sick care model to a well-being and enhanced care delivery model. How we receive care, how we sustain well-being will fundamentally change and power new ways in how healthcare goods and services are delivered to the market. Now, to believe this future, you have to have a certain set of core capabilities or foundation that needs to happen in the marketplace. What do you need for this future to emerge? The first one is sharing of data. Consumers are willing to share their data more than ever before. Deloitte recently conducted a survey to our Center of Health Solutions and Center for Human Experience. In that survey, we asked our consumers whether they are willing to share information. What we've observed is post the COVID pandemic, the typical percentage of consumers who are willing to share data has gone up by almost 10 percentage points. The good news for the incumbents is 70% of those surveyed are willing to trust the health plan to serve as the data aggregator on their behalf. In the same survey, 75% is willing to trust their hospital or health system to serve as their data aggregator. So in terms of consumer desire, consumer need, there is definitely white space in the market for consumers who want to use data-driven solution to manage their well-being. But in the same survey, only 50% said they have the tools necessary to actually consolidate their information in a meaningful way and to make sense of it. So there is certainly more opportunity to do well as an industry to address that demand. Interoperability. I know the CMS mandate is forcing the conversation on, I'd say, establishing the digital freeways to share information within the health ecosystem. But we view radical interoperability as beyond the immediate mandate as well. But we think this mandate is going to be a catalyst to open up the art of what is possible and really improve coordination, not just among the health industry, but health industry and adjacent industries to make radical interoperability with a consumer focus a reality. Access. Traditional barriers to healthcare access like geography, lack of resources will come down. Another trend as a result of the pandemic we've seen is a rise in virtual health, more people willing to try telemedicine for a variety of healthcare needs, including their mental health needs. We believe that trend is here to stay, and that will invariably accelerate what Deloitte believes is the future of the health industry. The empowered consumer. I was really thrilled. Most of the panelists who were talking today really didn't use the word patient a lot. And I think that's a huge behavior change for us within the industry. We have to start looking at the consumer for who they are and support individuals in their journey for a better well-being, not just at an individual level, but the whole family. The empowered consumer has caused radical disruption in several other industries. If you think about the mobile phone you hold today, or where we are with digital cameras, it's nothing like what it looked like 10 years ago. Again, from a health industry context, we've largely been immune to some of these changes, but we believe that consumer expectations on the health industry is changing, and the next decade will offer enormous opportunity for us to reinvent ourselves. But the key in terms of who will win in the future is marked by behavior change. Whoever figures out behavioral will have a significant edge in winning not just market share, but being the desired service provider for the consumers, and ultimately scientific breakthrough. One of the things that, again, I'll use the COVID example, the rise of genetics, what we're doing with things like nutrigenomics, delivery of food as a medicine, we need a mechanism to industrialize this using exponential technology to try and make sense of not just data, the radical interoperability, but really accelerate how scientific breakthroughs are delivered to the consumer. Just a few recent examples. There are new wearables that are getting launched by Amazon, for those of you who observed the news, that's really taking computer vision and artificial intelligence to a whole new level and challenging the whole fitness and well-being paradigm. And Apple, I think this week also kind of announced a new Apple Watch that's really launching a new fitness program that's trying to, again, take a crack at behavior change and scientific breakthrough and experience at a whole different level. So for anybody who thinks the digital giants are not trying new ways to engage the consumer and get in the middle of the digital health experience, I will encourage you to go and look at some of the recent trends. And all of that, in my mind, is interoperability, right? Interoperable experience, interoperable well-being. And as the CMS mandate kind of establishes a data pipeline, it allows us to get insights like we've had never before. And I'm really excited for what the future could look like. So what will happen to the traditional sectors? Now, as radical interoperability gains footing in the market, we think from a provider perspective, the shift to prevention and wellness will cause complex procedures and routine core costs to come down. Increased connectivity will transform the way providers function and deliver care in the marketplace. Health plans will really transform their business models, and availability of real-time data predictive analytics will remove uncertainty and risk and eliminate the need for traditional coverages. Increased interoperability, the focus on the consumer, and technology advances will drive change in healthcare services and offerings. From a life sciences perspective, early intervention, prevention will become the norm. Cognitive technology applied to massive data sets will automate research and development, and medical technology will advance exponentially as well. The role of government in this is crucial. As exponential technology and new business practices emerge, we really see government playing the continued role as a catalyst for innovation and keeping the guardrails on the industry to ensure that the human experience and the consumer experience is unfiltered. So as radical interoperability gets a foothold, we think the traditional sectors will disappear over time to lead to an archetype-based model for the future of health. These are the 10 archetypes that we believe that the industry will reclassify as this future emerges. Under data and platform, think of these as the aggregators, the technology backbone that provides the digital health foundation needed for the future. Data conveners store, aggregate individual population institutional data sets. They enable interoperability and protect privacy and security. Science and insights engine. These are pioneers who continuously conduct research and development efforts to provide care delivery and insights well beyond human capability. And data and platform and infrastructure builders who again provide the foundational backbone. Think of all your cloud vendors and services that they offer today. Well-being and care delivery. Health product developers who power the consumer's health ecosystem by developing and manufacturing applications and devices. The personalized virtual health actor, your virtual health providers, telemedicine entities, and what we see in terms of the digital health we know today. Specialty care operators, these are the large redesigned hospital systems. We will always have a need for urgent care and surgery procedures and things like that. So the specialty care operators will really focus on those illnesses where you do have to go to a hospital, but we anticipate as the system shifts to a well-being model, the volume that you will need a specialty care operator for will decline. And a localized health hub that will serve as the in-person connection and really manage the behavioral change across the populations in a community. From a care enablement standpoint, we see the rise of connectors and intermediaries, individualized financier who really focus on personalized health coverage that focus both on traditional and non-traditional financing options to really empower the consumers to lead the best life possible and enable longevity. And then finally, the regulators who define the regulations to catalyze this future, ensuring that consumer public safety is protected in the era of artificial intelligence and data sharing. Now, what we anticipate is that every organization who plays a role in the health industry today will choose a combination of these archetypes based on what their value proposition is. So a health plan could choose to be an individualized financier, a data convener, and a science and insight engines. They could partner with their ecosystem to really ramp up their capabilities, even in the well-being and care delivery side. So this archetype framework is not meant to be prescriptive, but really paint a picture of what is possible in terms of a radical sector redesign riding on exponential change and technology. So what do? Every time we have a meaningful conversation about this subject with our client executive leaders, we see like an array of reaction, right? Some excitement, some disbelief, and let's say concern in terms of what do you do now, what do you do next, what is the right pace of change to go through as an organization. But Deloitte's point of view is, as incumbents, we have a choice. We can either innovate ourselves and be the leaders driving the transformation, or resist change and get disrupted. We do have built-in advantages. We have the healthcare expertise, the operational excellence at a large scale, a targeted consumer base, and we must be self-disruptors. And we do have a point in time where I think the data conveners who are trying to disrupt the market today will be willing to work with the traditional players to accelerate the change in industry. But they are not going to wait. And they do have built-in advantages. They have the digital and technology expertise and backbone. They have deep pockets, and they have access to consumers and data like the traditional industry does not have. And they are on the outside looking in. So for health organizations, some key steps are necessary. Align on why you are winning today. What is truly differentiating your business? Which of your capabilities, assets, and differentiators go above and beyond the table stakes? Define which business models and value drivers will allow you to win in the future. What are the revenue opportunities? What are your aspirations? And what combination of the future archetypes you will play in? And then build and transform your business through a very focused and targeted roadmap. Now, coming back to the subject at hand, right, which is the immediate CMS patient access mandate, we really see this as the starting point for the journey of radical interoperability. We are excited not just in terms of the immediate data sets that CMS is forcing health plans and providers to expose through FHIR-based APIs, but we are excited about what comes next. What will health plans do to innovate based on FHIR, and how will they build additional capabilities to take advantage of genomics? How will business models transform to really kind of serve as the foundation for the archetypes that we are seeing in the future? I think the next decade is going to be a really exciting chapter in healthcare and digital health. And we believe that the immediate CMS mandate and the world we live in as a result of the COVID pandemic is actually going to see an enormous acceleration of the trends that Deloitte's kind of pushed out of the market since 2018. With that, I'd love to take a couple of questions. And again, thank you for the OneUp team for this wonderful opportunity.
Sujay, thanks so much. It's great to have you on. And I think, we're all sort of curious about this future that we have and, this first step. So, one question I have is, these organizations have been around for a long time. We have lots of processes and operating methodologies that work for us today. Now we have this disruption called CMS. It's going to be the start. But change is hard, especially in healthcare, right? There's a lot in the way. Do you have any advice to some of the listeners for how to sort of take this on, so that you can overcome some of the, we know we're going to get objections in our organizations. How are we going to overcome that? Because the future, we all can agree on the future. It's sort of that pathway. It's like, how do you get over the hump? What are your thoughts on that?
Well, that's a really good question. No, I'll kind of talk about a little bit about the North Star, right?
Mm-hmm.
In my mind, there is no cause that is worthy of pursuit more than the cause of human health. Now, anyone who's lost a loved one to cancer or heart disease, and I've certainly I've lost loved ones too early in their life. There is just, for those of us in the industry, a moral obligation to try and do something about a better future. So I'll kind of start that in terms of what motivates me and what should motivate my partners in the industry to kind of think about change. The second, even though the future can be like dramatic, right? Even a 1,000-mile journey starts with a single step, right? So start by asking the right questions and start by raising awareness to what seems like compliance and technology projects within your organization. When Deloitte meets with senior leaders and executive teams, we certainly put issues like interoperability front and center for what it really means in terms of strategic value. We encourage a lot of introspection, right? This is not to say everybody needs to throw away what they're doing today and just go try something new. Introspect into what your core capabilities are. Think critically about where you want to be, what you want to play, and recognize that every idea doesn't mean multi-million-dollar, multi-billion-dollar projects. In some cases, what you're trying to do is a small pilot for a creative idea and to do more with less. So adopt, I'd say, an open culture and innovation mindset. Don't be afraid to raise issues to your leadership team. When you see things like exponential technology, especially issues like interoperability, it's a C-suite issue. Your board of directors should be paying attention to it. And if they are not, use this opportunity to raise it.
Yeah, no, that's great advice. And I guess we're going to learn a little bit by doing. Another question for you. We're seeing an emergence of third-party apps, that are going to provide what traditionally only an EHR could, or, actually a physical chart. What do you think about how they coexist, the apps, relative to the more monolithic EHR solutions that are out in the marketplace?
Again, a good question. I think somebody asked this to Denise, right? Like, what is the endpoint? Will consumers really use the third-party development apps? The next year is going to be interesting in terms of not the presence of an app really doesn't do anything. The app has to figure out how to engage the consumer and how to figure out behavioral, right? You have to keep the consumer engaged. You have to keep them coming back to your app, and then we can expect change. So in terms of coexistence, I think health plans and providers should be comfortable allowing third-party apps to engage their membership base, because at the end of the day, it is about the empowered consumer. If you are not providing the features to engage that consumer, they are going to look for it elsewhere. So I think it forces healthcare organizations to up their game in terms of their digital channels, so a consumer doesn't have a need to go to another app in the first place. But then on the flip side, coexistence is crucial, because I think health systems will derive benefit from consumers using digital channels at the end of the day. Pick your ecosystem, help your consumers get access to information, and I think there is space for everybody to operate and innovate in this market.
Excellent. Hey, one more question. Let's put it out there that we're going to make sure we give really good care. We're going to manage the data and do everything right. And we all do that. Do you think that the health system, broadly speaking, is going to need to adopt some sort of consumer marketing behavior to be able to attract patients and even providers into the system? Because there's not a lot of choice in the future, different than we've had. Will we see, certainly we've seen a move towards, the pharma companies advertising on CNN. Will we see more health system connection at a consumer level to get them into, as customers for the future?
That's, again, a really good question. And, when Deloitte looks at future of health, we do see the provider landscape dramatically shifting. We spoke about the specialty care operators, rise of telemedicine. See, end of the day, the patient-physician relationship is still very holy, right? That's the holy grail of healthcare. Yeah. But we are also seeing patients willing to download data and go have their own opinion on their health. So consumerism is definitely a crucial aspect as providers try to redesign their own business models. Telemedicine has become the norm. Even my average regional clinic is now offering telemedicine as a service. And I can certainly see a future where that consumer engagement is going to be crucial for providers, not only to retain market share, but really transform themselves into the role of well-being agents and the localized health plans.
Sujay, you were great. We needed more than a half hour with you. So thanks for coming on today.